Hi, and welcome to the tutorial for OSeMOSYS Hands-On 8. To access the hands-on, like before, we go onto the Open Learn Create page, we sign in and we go on My Profile, scroll down to Enrollment, select Energy and Flexibility Modeling, OSeMOSYS and FlexTool, scroll down to Course Content, scroll down to Lecture 9, where we find Hands-On Exercise 8. Once again, before actually following the steps in the video, have a read of this document to see what we have to do. So, the learning outcomes of this hands-on is to be able to represent in OSeMOSYS emissions and reserve margin. So to do so, before we do the hands-on, what we do is, like previously, we go to our OSeMOSYS and FlexTool folder, we create a new folder, and we call this HO8. We go to HO7, we copy the sand interface, and we paste this in HO8, renaming it sand interface HO8. Let's open this and go back to the instructions. So, on the instructions, the first thing that needs to be represented is emissions representation. So there are specific parameters that can be used to represent emissions. There is the emission activity ratio, emission penalty, annual exogenous emissions, annual emission limit, model period exogenous emission, and model period emission limit. Read over this document and the lecture slide appropriate to this document in order to understand what each of these are and how you can use them. For the case of the hands-on, what we're going to add is emissions activity ratios. So, we will not add any new technologies or fuels in this exercise. So in order to add the emissions activity ratios, like before, we will need the data from the data prep file. So on the blue link over here, we right click, open link in new tab. This takes us to a page on Zenodo. We scroll down and we download data prep for hands-on 8. So this has opened already. We go ahead and open this as well. And we go back onto the hands-on. So what we need to do is open the sand interface, enable editing, enable content. Then over here on the parameters, we select all. And on the technologies, for now, we select all as well. Afterwards, on the parameters, we unselect everything and we only select emission activity ratio. So, emission activity ratio, click OK. Then in column C, for technologies, we unselect everything and we filter out import coal, import natural gas, import oil. We also filter out min bio, min coal, min natural gas, and min oil. And we click on OK. Then in column D, which could have been hidden like it was the case for me, we filter out EMI-CO2, so that's CO2 emissions. As we can see, the data is 0, so that means that all of these commodities do not emit any CO2 as of now, which is not the case. So we need to add data to represent how much CO2 they emit. So what we do is we go into the data prep file, emissions activity ratios, and over here we copy the rows corresponding to each emitter. So first of all, we check to see that the numbers stay the same, and that is in fact the case. So we can copy these row by row. So first we can copy min coal. To do this in the easy way, as said before, Control Shift right arrow, Control C. We go back into the sand interface, min coal, right click, and paste. So this has pasted as values already because it was copied in values. So then we need to do the copying for the other commodities. So what we need to do is go back over here. To continue copying the rest, we need to do this row by row. So min oil, we copy the row, go back into the data, into the sand file, min oil, right click, paste. Shift Control right arrow, Control C, go back onto the sand interface, right click, paste. Control Shift right arrow, Control C, right click and paste. Control Shift arrow, Control C. Right click and paste. Control Shift arrow, Control C. Right click and paste. And the last one remaining is min bio. So after we've copied all of this, we Control S to save. The next thing that we need to add is the reserve margin. So to do this, firstly we clear out all the selected parameters. So we start with emission, then technology, and then parameters. So from over here, we unselect all and we select reserve margin parameter, which should be somewhere over here. Here, reserve margin. And we can see that there's only one row and it's 0. So because this applies to the whole model. So we need to add a 15% reserve margin. This can be found over here in the data prep file. So if we go over here, reserve margin, we Control Shift right arrow, Control C, go back to the sand, right click, paste, and we Control S to save again. So now we'll need to add the reserve margin tags. So in parameters, what we do is we unselect reserve margin and we select reserve margin tag technology. So now, from all these technologies, what we need to do is we need to add 1 in all the years if a technology is contributing to the reserve margin. So that is indicated in the hand zone over here. So in this case, for this model, we're assuming that backstop, coal power plant, oil power plant, the natural gas power plants, power distribution, the bio power plant, the hydropower plant, geopower plant, and the nuclear power plant all add to the reserve margin technology. So we need to add 1 for all of these. The quick and easy way to do this is to go into the sand. So here we add 1, that's for backstop, Control C, Control Shift, right arrow, V, and we Control C again. So then the other technologies that we needed to add this to was power coal. So we now just paste as values. The oil power, paste again as values. Power natural gas 1, paste. Power natural gas 2, power distribution, power bio, power hydro, power geo, and power nuclear. Once we've done so, we Control S. So then what we need to do is use the reserve margin tag fuel to select which fuels the reserve margin applies to. So for that, in column A, we unselect the reserve margin tag technology and we select reserve margin tag fuel. In column F, we filter out for ELC 003, which should be right at the bottom. And we add 1 for all the years. So 1, Control C, Control Shift, right arrow, Control V, and Control S to save. Having done this, what we need to do next is run the model and check the emissions graph. So the emissions graph that we should get in the end are these. So to do so, we first close the data prep file, we close the sand file, and like shown previously, local disk C, program files, click sand, export template, this PC, local disk C, OSeMOSYS and FlexTool, H08, okay, template exported. We go back just to delete the unnecessary sand that has been created. So delete, go back onto the click sand, select H08, select the code, and we click on run. Now we wait until the model has run. So once the model has completed running, you will get such a screen as in the cases before. So let's visualize the results. what we do again is we go onto our OSeMOSYS and FlexTool folder, H08. So over here again, we rename the results file. So H08 underscore results. And afterwards, we open up results database. So these are the same steps that we did before to visualize the results. Enable content, right click on macro, run. We copy the path, so Control C. Then over here, we select everything. Control V, / H08 underscore results dot txt. Again, remember to put the txt. And we press OK. Yes. 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 Okay. So now we can visualize the results using the results template. For this hands-on exercise, what we need to visualize is the annual CO2 and the annual CO2 by technology. So enable content. Now, keep in mind, whenever you want to visualize something using the results template, so let's say annual electricity, we add the results over here, just like we've done before. So we'd come and select cell A4, pivot analyze table, change data source, and the next steps. So every time that you want to visualize results, you need to do this again. So let's say if I had done this, yeah, actually I'm just going to do it to show you. So change data source, choose connection, browse for more, H08, results database, open. Okay, 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 and okay. And then I select all the power plants. So power sol, power coal, power natural gas, power wind, power at sea, power wind. Let me just check if I've selected everything. Yeah, so I click OK. So let's say if I was just going to visualize this graph, right? So over here, I've put the results. Now, if I go to annual CO2, these results have not been visualized over here. So I need to do the same steps again. So to complete this hands-on, we wanted to look at the annual CO2, right? So what we do is we click again on sum of results values, change data source, choose connection, browse for more, H08, results database, open, okay, 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 and okay. And now I'm visualizing the results based on the model that I've run. So this is the exact same result as it is on the hands-on file. You should be getting such a result. And now if I want to look at annual CO2 by technology, if I come over here, again, the results have not been visualized. So what I need to do is select the data source again. So cell A4, sum of result values, pivot table analyze, change data source, choose connection, browse for more, H08, results database, open, okay, 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 and okay. And now I come over here and I need to select in additional to min bio and min coal, min natural gas, which is at the bottom, I'm guessing. Yeah, and min oil. And I click OK. And this is the results that I get, which is the same as in the H08 PDF. So just keep in mind that every time when you want to visualize something different, so some aspect of your results, you need to do the process of adding the data by changing the data source for every single sheet. So doing it for one sheet does not mean that the rest have been changed. When I did it for annual CO2 by technology had not changed. When I did it for annual electricity production, this had not affected the annual CO2 as I just showed. Thank you for watching this tutorial.